What if a fallen angel returned to heaven after defying Lucifer? What if this angel's journey holds secrets that could shatter everything we think we know about the celestial battle? This is the story of NAMTAEL, one who fell, walked in darkness, and returned with a dangerous secret. Are you ready to uncover the truth? In today's video, we explore the fascinating and mysterious tale of NAMTAEL, a fallen angel who returned to heaven carrying knowledge so powerful that it terrified both heaven and hell. His journey is shrouded in mystery, with secrets that were meant to be forgotten. We'll examine NAMTAEL's fall from grace, his time in the abyss, and his return to heaven with a dark scroll that holds the key to a future war. This is not just a tale of rebellion, it's a story of redemption, secrecy, and the eternal battle between light and darkness. 1. The Fall of NAMTAEL. In the heavenly realms, NAMTAEL was not just an ordinary angel. He wasn't a warrior like Michael, nor a messenger like Gabriel. His role was one of great responsibility, a scribe, a keeper of time, a chronicler of the divine will. He was tasked with recording not just the events of creation, but the very intentions of the Creator. NAMTAEL's eyes saw the plans of the Almighty unfold, and his hands wrote the future before it even began to take shape. But for all his wisdom, NAMTAEL had a flaw, one that would lead him astray. He was not like the others, who walked the halls of heaven with cold detachment. He loved creation deeply. He marveled at humanity's design, its fragility and beauty. It was this admiration, this connection to the creation, that made him vulnerable when Lucifer began whispering doubts. Lucifer, full of pride and ambition, stirred the hearts of the heavenly host, suggesting that God's rule was imperfect. Lucifer's rebellion was fueled by his desire for power. But NAMTAEL's fall wasn't driven by hatred or pride. It was born from a deep internal conflict. He couldn't ignore the truth in Lucifer's words, not because he agreed with the fallen one, but because he saw a part of himself in Lucifer's reasoning. NAMTAEL began to question, not in rebellion, but in sorrow, unsure of where his loyalty truly lay. It's a question we all face at some point in our lives. How do we choose between two sides when both seem to hold some truth? NAMTAEL didn't fall for vengeance or malice. He fell because he couldn't reconcile his love for creation with the demands of unwavering loyalty to God. His heart was torn, and in that moment of indecision, he chose silence over action, standing still as heaven divided. Ezekiel 28:15 reminds us that even the most beautiful and pure among us can fall when wickedness is allowed to enter our hearts. NAMTAEL, too, became a casualty of his own internal war. He wasn't cast down in fiery fury like some of the other angels. He fell because he could not choose, because his heart had been divided. In that silence, he became one of the fallen, his wings no longer bathed in light, but now stained by doubt. And so NAMTAEL, the scribe who once recorded the will of God, now found himself lost in the abyss, with nothing left but the very scrolls he carried. But even in his fall, he wasn't as the others were. He didn't shout, didn't rage. He simply fell. Just like us, sometimes our choices, especially when clouded by internal conflict, have consequences. NAMTAEL's story calls us to reflect on our own decisions. How often do we stand at a crossroads, torn between two seemingly right paths? And how often do we make choices based on our emotions, not realizing the eternal consequences they carry? In NAMTAEL's fall, we see how even the purest hearts can be swayed, and how important it is to guard our hearts and minds with discernment, knowing that our choices, big or small, define who we are and where we end up. The story of NAMTAEL serves as a warning to be mindful of our thoughts, our actions, and the very desires that drive us. 2. NAMTAEL's role as the scribe. Before his fall, NAMTAEL was one of the most revered beings in heaven. His role wasn't one of power or battle, but of divine responsibility. He was the celestial scribe, the keeper of sacred knowledge, entrusted with the monumental task of recording the will of God and the unfolding of creation. NAMTAEL wasn't just a historian. He was a witness to the divine plan, chronicling not just events, but the thoughts and decisions of every angel, every movement in time. His scrolls contain not only the past, but the future. Every decision made in heaven, every act of divine grace or judgment, passed through his careful hands. The Bible itself speaks of the importance of record-keeping in heaven, as seen in Revelation 5:1, where a scroll is held by God, sealed with 7 seals, revealing the deep secrets of heaven. NAMTAEL's role was far more significant than we might imagine. He wasn't just writing for the sake of documentation. He was a keeper of truth, bearing witness to the unfolding of God's eternal plan, and he could see the very fabric of creation being woven into place. But NAMTAEL's heart was different. While many of the heavenly beings performed their duties without question, NAMTAEL felt deeply. His connection to the beauty of creation and his admiration for the fragile, sacred nature of humanity made him more compassionate, more vulnerable. It's a quality that set him apart and made him the perfect candidate to record the divine will. But it was also a weakness when the rebellion began. In a world that was perfectly ordered, NAMTAEL found himself at the intersection of 2 worlds, the heavenly kingdom he had always known and the new, dangerous ideas brought by Lucifer. While Michael and Gabriel stood firmly with God, NAMTAEL was drawn to the ideas Lucifer whispered about power, freedom, and autonomy. It wasn't that he agreed with Lucifer's motives, but that he saw a sliver of truth in Lucifer's rebellion, a truth that questioned God's authority and the very structure of heaven itself. NAMTAEL's role as the observer, the one who recorded not only the actions but the internal thoughts of the angels, made him torn between 2 conflicting forces. In Revelation 5:1, the scroll in God's hand is sealed because it holds a truth too deep to be understood at the time. For NAMTAEL, the scroll he carried, once a record of divine will, became a symbol of his own internal conflict. His love for God's creation, his desire for truth, and his yearning for understanding made him a perfect candidate for the task of witnessing not only history, but prophecy. Yet this same responsibility led him to question everything, and in that moment of doubt, he fell, not out of malice, but because of his own inability to reconcile these conflicting truths. Spiritual significance lies in NAMTAEL's role as a keeper of knowledge. How often do we find ourselves in situations where we are entrusted with great responsibility, yet our own internal struggles cloud our judgment? NAMTAEL's story teaches us that even those who seek truth must be cautious about where their hearts and minds wander. The very strength of our calling can become the source of our downfall if we lose sight of the truth that has been entrusted to us. Just as NAMTAEL recorded the divine intentions of God, we too are called to steward the truth we are given. How do we as individuals manage our gifts and responsibilities? Are we using them in alignment with God's will, or are we allowing our internal conflicts to cloud our purpose? NAMTAEL's role as a scribe reminds us to carefully guard our hearts and actions, understanding that the responsibilities we bear come with a profound weight and eternal consequence. 3. The abyss and the outer darkness. In the aftermath of his fall, NAMTAEL found himself in a realm far removed from the light of heaven. It was neither hell nor the lake of fire, but something far worse, the abyss. The ancient texts speak of this place as a dimension in between, where time is warped and reality itself becomes a distorted reflection of what it once was. Here, the fallen angels, unlike those who reveled in their defiance, are trapped in eternal silence, their memories twisted and their regrets amplified. 2 Peter 2:4 speaks of the angels who sinned. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them into gloomy dungeons to be held for judgment. This hell is not the fiery lake of torment we often imagine. Instead, it is a place of isolation, a prison where the soul cannot escape the weight of its own thoughts. It's a realm where even time seems to lose its meaning, and the agonizing silence of regret stretches into eternity. NAMTAEL, once the celestial scribe with a heart full of love for creation, now wandered this desolate expanse, clinging to his scrolls, the very essence of his identity. He was alone, a silent observer in a space where even his divine pen couldn't capture the truth. The abyss was a place of eternal waiting, where his memories were distorted and every moment felt like an eternity. He could still hear echoes of the heavenly choirs, faint whispers from a world he once belonged to, but they were far beyond his reach. But more than the physical torment, it was the isolation that truly broke him. NAMTAEL had once been surrounded by the divine order, by angels who stood with him in unity by the light of God's presence. Now, in the abyss, there was only darkness, a silence so profound that it seemed to swallow his very existence. He couldn't even recall the faces of the angels he had once known so well. His memories, once clear and sharp, had become faded and warped. Yet, amidst this torment, NAMTAEL's internal struggle continued. He wasn't consumed by rage or fury like some of the other fallen. Instead, he was consumed by sorrow, a deep, heart-wrenching grief for what he had lost, not just in heaven, but in himself. He wasn't just a fallen angel. He was a witness to his own failure, burdened with the knowledge that he could never undo the consequences of his choices. Spiritual significance lies in the concept of isolation. We all face moments in life where we feel cut off from God, distant from His presence, as if trapped in our own abyss. These moments of spiritual isolation can be some of the most painful, where regret and doubt cloud our vision and we can't find our way back. It is in these moments, however, that God's presence remains, even if we don't feel it. His silence isn't abandonment. It's a space for growth, reflection, and ultimately, redemption. Application. Reflect on your own moments of spiritual isolation. Have you ever felt lost, like NAMTAEL in the abyss, where the weight of your actions or regrets left you feeling distant from God? And yet, even in those moments, God's love and grace are still with us, waiting to draw us back. The challenge is to embrace that silence, not as punishment, but as a time to reflect, learn, and seek His presence, no matter how distant it may seem. 4. The revelation of the future war. NAMTAEL's journey through the abyss didn't end in eternal silence, nor was it marked by pure regret. Amidst the chaos and isolation, something extraordinary happened, a vision. The whispers from the darkness, which had once been silent, began to speak. NAMTAEL, ever the scribe, was compelled to listen, and what he saw and heard would alter the course of his existence forever. Matthew 24:30 tells us, "At that time the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky, with power and great glory." But what NAMTAEL saw wasn't just a vision of the return of Christ. It was something far darker, a future war that would echo the first rebellion, but would eclipse it in scale and consequence. In this vision, he witnessed a second celestial war, a final confrontation, not between God and Lucifer, but between the forces of heaven and a new, unexpected enemy. NAMTAEL watched as angels, once loyal to God, turned against the throne. He saw betrayal from within heaven itself, a war so devastating that even the seraphim, heaven's highest order of angels, would tremble at its revelation. What made this vision so terrifying wasn't just the destruction it foretold, but the realization that this was a secret kept even from the highest echelons of heaven. NAMTAEL saw what was hidden from even the archangels. This wasn't just prophecy, it was a warning too powerful, too dangerous to be spoken aloud. The scroll he carried was no longer just a record of past events. It had transformed into a weapon, a dark secret that could shatter heaven's eternal peace, if revealed prematurely. As the vision unfolded, NAMTAEL was overcome with fear, not of the battle itself, but of the consequences of revealing what he had seen. He realized that this war would not begin with a trumpet or a mighty shout. It would start with a whisper. The betrayer, an angel from within the divine ranks, would strike when least expected, and only when the signs of the times began to manifest would the truth be revealed. The spiritual significance of this moment cannot be overstated. Just as Jesus foretold of wars and rumors of wars in Matthew 24, NAMTAEL's vision serves as a reminder that we are part of a much larger cosmic story. The battle for good and evil is far from over. We are living in the middle of it, where each of our choices carries weight and meaning. The secrets of heaven, the hidden plans of God, are not always revealed to us immediately. Sometimes we must trust that His timing is perfect, even when we cannot see the full picture. As we look at our own lives, how often do we consider the unseen battles happening around us, the spiritual forces at play, the internal wars between good and evil that we often overlook? Like NAMTAEL, we too are part of a bigger picture, and it's crucial to remain vigilant. We may not know what the future holds, but we can trust that God is in control, and our role is to remain faithful, just as NAMTAEL did, even when we don't fully understand the path ahead. What is your part in God's divine story? How can you stay alert and ready for whatever may come? 5. The return to heaven. The silence of the abyss was all-consuming, but for NAMTAEL it wasn't the end. Despite the darkness, despite the isolation, he made an unprecedented decision. He turned back, carrying his secret scroll with him, an object so powerful it could shatter the very foundations of heaven. But how would the celestial realm receive him? Could he, a fallen angel, truly return to the throne of God? Hebrews 12:22-23 tells us, "But you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly." Heaven is a place of light, of joy, of unending worship. But for NAMTAEL, his return was not marked by fanfare or celebration. He was not greeted as a hero, but as a stranger. He approached the gates of heaven, those gates guarded by fiery seraphim, the highest and most fearsome of God's angels. They recognized him immediately. NAMTAEL had once been a part of their ranks. His name was written in the scrolls of heaven, his life marked by divine purpose. Yet now he was not the angel they had once known. He was changed, carrying a burden so heavy that even the gates of heaven seemed hesitant to open. As the seraphim raised their flaming swords in defense, ready to strike him down for daring to return, NAMTAEL did not flinch. He knelt, his heart full of both sorrow and resolve. It wasn't a defiant return. There was no rebellion in him this time. There was only the weight of what he had seen, what he had learned, and the truth that must be revealed. It was then that Michael, the Archangel of War, appeared. His sword still burning with the remnants of the first celestial war. Michael's voice thundered, "NAMTAEL, why have you returned?" The question was not out of judgment, but one of suspicion. After all, how could a fallen angel come back to heaven after all that had transpired? NAMTAEL looked up at Michael, his voice steady, but heavy with the burden of his mission. He simply said, "Because what I carry does not belong in hell and cannot remain in my hands." This response, simple but profound, made Michael pause. The fierceness of Michael's battle-ready stance softened for a moment. NAMTAEL was not here to fight, to rebel, or to seek forgiveness. He was here to deliver something, a message, a warning, something that could change everything. The moment NAMTAEL spoke those words, it became clear that this was no ordinary return. This was not an angel returning for redemption, but for truth, truth that could bring heaven to its knees or silence it forever. Heaven's response was not immediate. It took 7 days of silence before a decision was made. The spiritual significance of this moment is profound. It shows that God's mercy extends even to those who have fallen, even to those who have made the ultimate mistake. Just as NAMTAEL was allowed to return to heaven, despite his past rebellion, we too can find our way back to God when we have repented and sought His forgiveness. God's grace doesn't always look like we expect it to. It is sometimes hidden in the most unexpected places and faces. What does it mean for us to seek redemption? NAMTAEL's return challenges us to reconsider the power of grace, repentance, and God's ability to restore even the most broken. Have you ever felt unworthy to return to God? NAMTAEL's story reminds us that no matter how far we've fallen, God can always make a way for us to return if we are willing to surrender to Him. What burdens are you carrying that you need to release? What steps can you take today to return to God's embrace, just as NAMTAEL did, no matter the weight of your past? 6. The Sealed Scroll and the Silent Witness. NAMTAEL's return to heaven was not without consequence. As he knelt before the throne, the elders of heaven, even Michael himself, could not deny the gravity of what he carried. What was wrapped in that scroll was too dangerous to be revealed, too powerful to be left unsealed. NAMTAEL's burden was not just a piece of prophecy, it was a secret, a divine warning, sealed with the silence of eternity. In Daniel 12:4, it is written, "But you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase knowledge." This verse speaks to the importance of divine knowledge, of wisdom that must be kept hidden until the appointed time. NAMTAEL's scroll was not meant to be opened immediately, for it contained more than just a prophecy. It held the dangerous truth of a future betrayal, a betrayal so devastating it could unravel the entire heavenly order. God had allowed NAMTAEL to witness this future, to record it, but it could not be revealed yet. Not to the angels, not to the demons, not to humanity. It was too dangerous. The scroll was not just a prophecy of the end. It was a blueprint for a betrayal within heaven itself. And NAMTAEL knew that if anyone were to read it too soon, the war would begin before its time, and half of creation would burn in the fires of preemptive judgment. The scroll itself was sealed with 7 divine seals, each one imbued with heavenly authority. It was wrapped in chains of light, not to imprison it, but to protect the knowledge within from being unleashed prematurely. The contents were so forbidden that even the most holy angels of heaven were not allowed to even glance upon it. NAMTAEL's role as the bearer of this secret was not to cause fear, but to wait in silence. He became a silent witness to a future he could not alter, a future that was yet to unfold. He was not a hero nor a villain, but a keeper of something so powerful that even the whispers of it could alter the course of time. And so NAMTAEL was cast to the edges of heaven, where he would remain, holding the scroll, waiting for the time when God would decide it was right to open it. Heaven, now full of peace and worship, had no room for this dark secret. The other angels, those who did not know what was hidden within the scroll, could not understand why NAMTAEL was allowed to remain. The spiritual significance of this moment is profound. NAMTAEL's waiting is a powerful metaphor for the ways in which we, too, must wait on God's timing in our own lives. Sometimes the knowledge we seek, the answers we crave, are not meant to be revealed right away. Like NAMTAEL, we must learn to live in patience, to trust in God's perfect timing, even when the burden of what we know feels too heavy to carry. What are the things in your life that you feel are too heavy to bear? Are you waiting for an answer, for a revelation, for a door to open? Just as NAMTAEL carried the scroll in silence, we too must sometimes carry our burdens with trust in God's timing. Even when the truth seems too painful or too dangerous to know, God calls us to be faithful and patient, trusting that in His perfect time all things will be revealed. Are you ready to wait on God's timing in your own life? How can you live faithfully even when the answers seem out of reach? 7. The prophetic nature of NAMTAEL's secret. As NAMTAEL stood in the presence of the Most High, the silence surrounding him was palpable. It was not just the silence of waiting, but the silence of something ancient, something profound. The scroll he carried, sealed in 7 layers of divine light, contained more than just a prophecy of future events. It held the key to the last betrayal that would shake the very foundations of heaven itself. In 1 Corinthians 13:9-10, the Apostle Paul writes, "For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears." This speaks to the nature of prophecy and the mysteries that God chooses to reveal. NAMTAEL's scroll, though filled with divine truth, was not meant to be fully understood until the appointed time. The contents of the scroll were hidden from the eyes of even the most faithful angels and servants of heaven, for it was a secret so dangerous that it could alter the course of both heavenly and earthly history. What was written inside this scroll? Theories abound. Some say it contains the names of angels who would betray God in the last days. Others whisper that it holds the prophecy of a second war in heaven, one far greater and more devastating than the first rebellion led by Lucifer. The scroll's significance is wrapped in mystery, and the full impact of what NAMTAEL witnessed remains locked away. The spiritual significance of this moment lies in the power of prophecy. Prophecy often reveals partial truths that, when seen out of their proper time, can cause chaos and fear. Just as we see in Scripture, there are moments when the revelation of truth is held back until it's the right moment for it to be understood. The scroll NAMTAEL carries represents not only a glimpse into the future, but also a burden, a knowledge that must be preserved in silence until the fullness of God's plan is revealed. In the story of NAMTAEL, we also see how we as believers are sometimes given glimpses of God's plan, but not always the full picture. We might find ourselves yearning for understanding, seeking to know what lies ahead, but God in His wisdom chooses to reveal truth at the right time. It's a reminder that as much as we desire certainty, we are to trust God's timing, knowing that He holds the ultimate plan for the world and for our lives. How often do we seek answers, trying to understand everything before it's time? Are we able to trust God with the secrets of our lives, knowing that in His perfect timing, all will be revealed? Just as NAMTAEL carried a heavy secret, we too must trust that God's plans for us will unfold at the right moment. Even when we do not have all the answers, we are called to live in faith, knowing that God is in control. What are you holding in your heart that requires waiting on God's timing? How can you cultivate patience and trust in God's perfect plan, even when you don't see the full picture? Conclusion. NAMTAEL's story serves as a profound reminder of the complexities of faith, the burden of prophecy, and the mysteries hidden within God's divine plan. From His fall to His return to heaven, carrying the weight of secrets that could alter the course of eternity, NAMTAEL's journey challenges our understanding of rebellion, redemption, and the power of knowledge. The scroll he holds is a symbol of the deeper, often hidden truths in God's kingdom. Truths we may not yet fully comprehend, but are essential for the unfolding of His ultimate purpose. Through NAMTAEL, we see the importance of remaining faithful, even in times of silence and uncertainty. His silence, though burdened with knowledge, is a testament to the wisdom of waiting. The secrets He carries remind us that sometimes what matters most is not knowing all the answers, but trusting in the One who holds the future in His hands. We, too, are part of God's grand story. While we may not be privy to the hidden scrolls or divine revelations like NAMTAEL, we are called to live with purpose, to trust in God's timing, and to remain faithful even when the path ahead is unclear. NAMTAEL's story compels us to reflect on our own spiritual journeys, and how we, too, must carry the weight of God's truth, sometimes in silence, sometimes in patience, but always with the certainty that He is working all things together for His glory. If NAMTAEL's story has intrigued you and raised questions about God's plan for us, share this video with others who are curious about the deeper mysteries of the Bible. Like, comment, and subscribe to continue exploring these incredible truths with us. What do you think of NAMTAEL's journey and the secrets he carries? What does it teach you about trusting God's timing and purpose for your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. How do you think NAMTAEL's secret could shape our understanding of the end times and our role in God's kingdom? Do you believe that there are still hidden truths in the Bible that will be revealed at the right time? Let's discuss. Share your thoughts below.